12 steps to a better memory. Key 2. Associate. Mnemonic techniques are the basic tool for improving your attention and thus your memory. Named after Mimachin, the Greek goddess of memory, mnemonic techniques are simply methods to improve or develop the memory. They include an unusual way of memorizing huge amounts of information. A number of different techniques are used to associate something you need to remember with something you already know. Post-lateral cueing, acronym, acrostic, popular saying, etc. Anyone who has ever watched a memory expert mystify his audience is watching a demonstration of what mnemonics can do. Whether or not we realize it, we all constantly make use of memory boosting tools. We may use external memory aids like the ones we learned about in the first chapter, but it's also possible to train your memory using internal memory aids, the mnemonic techniques. These techniques were of almost unbelievable important hundreds of years ago, before the invention of printing presses, because most people didn't have access to pens and paper or printed material. Relying on their own memories was the paramount importance. Indeed, for the ancient Greek and Romans, mnemonic techniques were one of the most important subjects taught in classic school. They were often used by the great orators of the time to remember their speeches. Without these techniques, their task would have been impossible. A mnemonic technique is not just a party trick, but a serious method to help you pay attention, register information, and retrieve information from your memory. The technique takes advantage of the specific way your brain works and the quirks of memory in order to improve your ability to recall. Because they are not really tricks, but methods. You need to practice them over and over in order to become comfortable with using them every day. These techniques don't rely on magic, but on your own ability to visualize, make associations, and organize important information. Post-lateral cueing. One of the easiest ways to remember a string of words is to use post-lateral cueing, in which the first letter of a word is used as a cue to remember the word itself. Acronyms. First-letter cueing usually employs acronym, making a word out of the first letter of the word to be remembered. For example, to remember the name of the Great Lakes, use the acronym HOMES, Huron, Ontario, Michigan, Erie, and Superior. Many organizations and government bodies use acronym. NATO stands for North Atlantic Treaty Organization, for example, and AA for Alcoholics acronyms. Some acronym AA for Alcoholics Anonymous. Some acronym become so familiar that we forget what the letter stands for. The word scuba, for example, originates as an acronym for self-contained underwater breathing apparatus, and laser was coined as an acronym for light amplification by stimulated emission of radiation. Acrostics. A related form of the first letter cueing is the acrostic, in which the first letter of a series of words, lines, or verses form the information to be remembered. For example, the remember of 6 New England states, maybe nobody visit a marriage red car. Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut. An acronym is also the base for the musical favorite everyone grew up with, Every Good Boy Does Fine, which represents a note on the line of the treble clef. The only problem with the acronym or acrostic is the tendency to forget the system then you devise. To offset this possibility, try and make a visible association with the shortcut. To remember the home's acronym, picture home floating on the Great Lakes. Even you want to think of their names, the picture of the floating homes will come back to you, and with it, the first letter of each lake's name. Popular sayings. Whether or not we realize it, each of us use some of these techniques all of the time. Think you don't know any mnemonic techniques? Try again. If you ever need to remind yourself whether a month has 30 or 31 days, you've probably run through the old chestnut. 30 days has September. And most people would probably never remember whether to set their clock ahead or back if it weren't for the saying, spring forward, fall back. Key 3. Visualize. Visualizing is the ability to see picture in your mind's eye, to see it quite clearly, with color, shape, and form, which really another words for imaging. Imagining with vividness and depth. You imagine or visualize in pictures. If you think of a horse, you conjure up an image of a horse. You don't see the word horse in letter in your mind, unless you are deliberately trying to visualize the word instead of the animal. Concrete images are always easier to visualize than abstract ideas. The riches of our imagination allow us to visualize not just a picture of something, but also how it smells, how it feels like, and how it sounds. Thus, it's possible to imagine or visualize the softness of the velvet drape, the warmth of a down quilt. It's even possible to catch the whiffs of our grandmother's molasses cake, because visualization is so important in using various mnemonic skills. It's something that should be practiced often. The more you practice, the more easily and vividly you will be able to visualize. Try this. Close your eyes and bring into your mind's eye the image of the cherry pie just out of the oven. Feel the warmth of the fire and sniff the aroma of the cherries. Note the brown, crisp crust and slit for the steam. Picture the way the cherry filling has bubbled over the crust, becoming hardened along the edge. Now picture yourself cutting into the pie into a knife, removing a slice and placing it on a plate. Watch the cherries slide out from underneath the crust. Now, visualize yourself getting a bite of pie with your fork. Peel the pork, slide into the dough and cherries. Now, you are putting the pork in your mouth. Taste the tart sweet cherries, the liquid filling, the warm flaky pastry as you chew. In your mouth has begun to water as you visualized this scene. You've done a good job. Visualization may seem silly to those who aren't accustomed to practicing it, but it underlines all mnemonic techniques. Being able to visualize well can greatly improve your memory skills. Practice visualization. To practice these skills, pick something from the following list each day and practice making it as vivid and real in your mind as you possibly can. Can of soup, raincoat, breakfast, dentist appointment, new puppy, your desk, chocolate ice cream soda, pine tree, patchwork quilt. Be a good observer. You may discover that being a good visualizer also means that a good observer. If you haven't spent much time really paying attention to your surroundings, it's not going to be easy to bring them into focus in your mind's eye. Think that it's not your problem. Sit down and try writing an accurate description in a stapler on your desk. Do the same thing with your shoe or your wristwatch. Can you describe them in complete detail? Can you draw a totally accurate picture of them? What exactly does your stapler look like? Does it have writing on it? How does the seams of your shoe look? What about the sole and heels? What sort of hands does your watch have? Exercise like this show us that we don't always pay as much attention to our everyday surroundings as we think.